this week. You and I are here together in Honolulu, and we're with a Defense Department organization that's interested in finding the remains of U.S. military personnel missing in wars. And the kind of excellence I've seen from you this week is related to an island that I think I had heard of before, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone actually mention the island Yap. But since I've been around you for the past 3 days, I've heard a lot about the island of Yap. So I'm just wondering if you could just tell us what is it about the island of Yap that has your attention? What's your central interest when it comes to that?
The reason I'm here in Honolulu today, and the reason that I've devoted a great deal of my adult life to Yap, is my uncle, John McCullough. So John McCullough was shot down in a B-24. He was part of the 307th Bomb Group, flying a 13-hour mission from the Admiralty Islands. He was over this little tiny island. It's 15 miles long by 3 miles wide. So they have this long flight up to Yap. They're over Yap, and they get attacked by 30 to 40 Japanese Zeros. And their plane, just after bombs away, is hit. And the Japanese Zero came up and shot a 20-millimeter cannon into the cockpit. The cockpit exploded. My uncle was a tail gunner. The plane went up, and I'm a pilot, did a stall. And there's reports I did a complete loop. There's no way a B-24 could do that. But it went up and stalled, went into a flat spin, and hit off the reef of Yap on the southeast side. So my family was notified in early July of '44 that my uncle was shot down. My mother was 5 years old. She can remember still the telegram gentleman coming on a bicycle to the door.
Wow.
Knocked on the door in Covina, California, where their South Dakota, Iowa farm family had relocated to help with the war efforts. They had a victory garden, and a lot of the brothers, there was 15 kids in the family, 13 survived infancy, and many of the boys were in the service then. But she remembers the knock on the door. She remembers the telegram getting handed to my grandparents, and she can remember the adults, which my grandfather never cried, crying. And she remembers them sitting there talking about Yap Island. My mother grew up knowing the story. My grandfather never forgave the Japanese. And when the other boys came back from the war, they had stories about John. One of my uncles was a C-47 pilot. He flew into the Admiralty Islands after my uncle was shot down, and he tried to find my uncle only to be told that he was shot down a few weeks before. So when I got into college, I had the chance. I was an applied math computer science major, and my father became ill and passed away, and I thought, what do I really want to do? I didn't really like computer science, so I could do it in math. And I looked in the college books, and I found history. I'm like, yeah, that's what I do, history, anthropology. So I switched schools in Wisconsin and started getting a history degree. And I was able to do research and do things that I really love doing. And that's when I started researching, how do you find out about Uncle John?
Wow. So when you were a college student?
Yeah, in college at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire.
Wow, yeah.
So we had to work in our senior thesis. So I started doing the research on my senior thesis, and I figured out how to request a missing aircrew report. I can't remember now how I found out what a missing aircrew report was, but I was able to request it, to write a letter and send it in. I remember it came back. It was on microfiche, little square, and my wife and I ran to the university library, and I can remember going in there and sticking it under there and actually reading it and going through and seeing the names and the dates and the reports of what actually happened. My uncle started it. We went to Yap for the first time in 2005. My wife and I, this has all been self-funded. We started looking around the island, asking questions, and we started finding aircraft wreckage. And we started realizing it was not a B-24, but yet it was American wreckage. So after that first trip, I went back home and I started researching all the losses on Yap Island. I was able to start identifying some of the aircraft that we had located, and over really the last 15 years, I've researched all the aircraft lost over Yap. Each trip we've gone back, we have systematically knocked off and found the aircraft. May they be an aircraft that someone was recovered from, or may it be an MIA case. So I've done extensive research, the National Archives, among others. I've flown my little plane around interviewing pilots who flew Yap missions. I've talked to numerous family members. Some family members have come to Yap to see their relatives' crash sites. So between the field work, the research work, I've been able to create a comprehensive database of really what happened during World War II on Yap, which no one else really has gone to that length to do.
So you say that that the Yappies did not experience some of the atrocities that for example, Filipinos faced. How about were there any Americans captured by the Japanese?
There was.
And then how did that go?
Yeah, there were actually 5 Americans captured. So there were 2 members of the Lieutenant Anthony crew that were shot down on August 10th, 1944. So it's an interesting case where the bomb groups that were flying missions in the summer of 44, they were 13-hour missions. So rather than each plane take off and you follow each plane with the lead navigator, you all navigated to a rendezvous point. Because if one plane led the rest of them, it's possible they all were lost
it's
and
all
ditching.
Lost, yeah.
So you all navigated on your own to the rendezvous point. I remember talking to one navigator, and he said that they just kept, just fly straight, and often they found the rendezvous points, and they rallied, and they went in and bombed, and then you had a period of 15-20 minutes of hell, and then again you had this 6 hours all the way back again. But the Anthony crew, they missed the rally point. They got a little bit lost, so they were well behind the rest of the group. The rest of the group came in, they bombed Yap, and Lieutenant Anthony decided on his own to, even though he was a single plane, he was going to drop his bombs on Yap come hell or high water. So he came in about 15 minutes after the rest of the group, and obviously they had just bombed a whole formation. He came on his own, and they heard on the radio, he said going into target and then going down over the target. So they heard a garbled transmission, and 2 members of his crew were captured. They bailed out, were captured right on the harbor entrance, standing there literally on the harbor entrance. The Japanese boated out, and they captured the 2 of them, took them in. A few days later, an American submarine with the first Navy SEALs, back then they called them UDT men, they had a reconnaissance of Yap for what they assumed to be the invasion of Yap. And they were dropped off outside the reef. They came in on boats one night, and 3 of them never made it back to the submarine. So what happened is they got lost when they were trying to figure out the beaches, and the submarine could not wait. They saw the Yap radar going on, and they had to go on. They left these 3 men on Yap. And these 3 UDT men made it for a few days, but were captured. And then they were combined with the Anthony crew members, and all 5 were sent to Palau for interrogation. And right now there's a group that is searching for their graves. They were executed on Palau, is the assumption, with the Filipino family from Yap that ran the weather station, and 2 Catholic priests on Yap, Spanish Catholic priests, that were also with that group. So their graves are assumed to be on Palau, and there's been groups looking for them, and perhaps might find those graves in the foreseeable future.
So these are also missing then, these 5 military personnel plus the civilians.
They add to the fodder of all these mysteries we have. So there's this group that we know that were captured, which is very few. Then we have over 110 MIA cases for the aircraft that were lost and shot down over Yap.
110?
110 plus.
Including your uncle?
Including my uncle.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the project is that, again, the Yap Visitors Bureau recognized what I was doing. They came to me and said, can we help document this history? So what we've done since 2008 is I've created all-weather signs and marble markers, and for all the sites that we found and identified, there is now a marble marker put in concrete, an all-weather sign that has UV protection that talks about the man, the mission, and the plane. So now, rather than junk in the jungle, visitors to Yap, which we're trying to help with the tourism industry for World War II tourism, you can now go to about 40 different American and Japanese sites and read about what that particular gun is, what that wreckage is, and it tells a story that was not there before.
You've been to Yap, I think you said 10 times. You plan to go back, and and you're still you've got a lot of things going on. You've established quite a presence and on the island, and you've done important things for the people of the island. But your central focus is still finding your uncle's plane, and you still feel hopeful, still feel confident that this can be done.
With the technology today, it most definitely can be. I had hoped when I first went to Yap that I, as a diver, could dive off the South Reef and find the plane. I had visions of doing that. Once I got off the reef and saw the abyss out there, it's a huge ocean.
Sure.
We found a lot of wreckage, a lot of bombs, a lot of war materials.
Yeah.
But we've had some trials and errors. We've tried sonar on our own without being technology underwater experts. But I've partnered now with some organizations that have the ability, have the technology to find my uncle's plane. So right now I do feel strongly that in the foreseeable future we're going to be able to find my uncle's plane.
I are here together learning about the Defense POW MIA accounting agency and your really impressive efforts on Yap, looking in particular for your uncle's plane, but also, you have in mind these others. You said more than 100 missing in action related to Yap. So there's your mission, and then there's the mission of the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. How are these missions similar? What do these missions have in common? Just in your own mind.
It's to bring the men home, the missing men. But I think it's going to lead to ultimately the recovery of a number of the sites that I've worked on for so many years, and I'm very grateful it's going to happen. I've never tried to recover a site. That's not in the scope of what I've done. I've been very proud that I've researched, documented, found many of the sites. And from that now, I need to pass that to DPEA and have them do the real legwork of actually going out and doing the work of excavating those sites and finding those men and bringing them home. So in the end, we have the same goal. My mom's still alive. She's a sister of my uncle. Hopefully she'll be alive. There's still one wife.
When that plane is found.
When that plane's found, there's still one wife of the crew member, believe it or not, for all these years. Laverne, so one of the gunners, she's still alive, and God, I wish we could find some closure on this. My fear is that, again, many of the close relatives will be deceased and gone as what's happened so far before we find closure on some of these. But one of the coolest things on Yap that I did, where one of the gentlemen that was recovered after the war, his brother, the plane is now a memorial. His brother came to Yap in 2010 and actually saw his plane. And he walked right up to it to see the plane that his brother died in. He went home and died 2 months later.
Wow.
And that was really a cool experience for him to travel to Yap, this remote island, and actually go there and see his brother's plane. He was just, you could see him stand there, and just couldn't believe he had that instance. And then a few months later he was gone, but
he had that experience.
A lot of little experiences like that, many experiences like that that made this so rewarding.
And you played an important role in that. It's a cool example of how an interest in history and perseverance not only makes your own life more interesting, but can do good for other people as well.
Yeah, and when you have the passion, that's what the difference sometimes than just research. You can do research, but you don't have that passion. I sit and I pore over reports I find, and I find little details because of things that I've spent so many years looking into that I can pull out that's significant, whereas a researcher just doing historical research will gloss over. But because I've heard all these stories, I can pick out little things that are tangents to the whole story. That's what I'm trying to share with DPA so that we can work together and collectively, again, understand these sites are these men that we've been looking for, and that the missions are worthy of going there.
Yeah. Well, Patrick Ranfranz, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the work you've done with Yap, and thank you for opening my eyes to a topic that I hadn't paid attention to before. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for your time.